home decided to watch some TV, listening to the news by Gordon Mosley. I listening to the things that he say he tracked in tonight, paying close attention to make sure I hear it right. But when I hear the things that he mentioned on the news, I had to declare them kind of thing got me confused. I hear some things where the ERC noticing, and it convinced me that people ain't learning nothing. We hear so many times about them big name calling, and they say ERC pretend that they didn't learn nothing. But once you're black and you just decide to say a word or two, bet your life on that they say ERC coming for you. Listen to the things you just hear on social media. Only one set of people allowed to talk in one Guyana. I still say nothing, black people ain't learning. But this is my concern. I hope one day black people will learn. ERC that I would like to know, if any of his members happens to be black people. And if that is the case, I want them to answer this call. Tell me how come none of them ain't got no voice at all. You're showing signs of weakness and you're afraid to be fair, and we see the same thing keep happening year after year. And the day will come when all this nonsense will stop. That will be the day when black people decide to wake up. Not so long ago, something terrible happened. This young Indian man want to kill out all black people by poison. But if his shoes was on the other foot, would have been a big threat. But up to this day, this ERC can't do nothing as yet. How come it's only black people committing cybercrime? When pretty on social media fussing people all the time, I still say black people ain't learning. But one day will come when the entire table will turn. Excuse me, see they fail to condemn, because these people think that the law is only for them. And anybody else who decide to file a complaint, they go call you a racist and don't want to hear nothing. Plenty complaint from time to time has been brought to their attention, but because of this one-sided cybercrime is why they don't show any concern. There's only one set of people that they really care about, and black people must take the abuse and shut them out. Kidaki Amsterdam went to court just recently for an issue that was highlighted by the same ERC. And with breakneck speed, the police decide to jump on his case without a search warrant event and search up the man's place. Let us all agree that black people under attack. Different laws for you and me just because we black. I still singing. Black people in London. To all my black friends, we must put a stop to all this nonsense. Many in the cybercrime laws to keep people silent, just to make sure nobody criticizes its government. And while that is a very clear case of dictatorship, it is no surprise that the ERC ignoring it. Why only the chosen few is allowed to have things their way, when people like me and you must have nothing to say? And when ministers in the government start to launch their attack, you never hear this ERC come out and talk about that. They send a policeman all the way to New York. This fella went up there to serve a cook someone on Rick Board. Under this thing, this government decide to fabricate a case, but like they forget the warning they get from Black T-shirt jails. The vice president described that he used as a low life. Because of this kind of abuse, he don't have a wife. I still singing, black people in learning. Just the other day, I hope your man see help is on the way.
All right, so today we are here at Club Twilight up in Buxton, and we are here to talk about all that's going on up here. Trust me, if you are on the East Coast, you're in Buxton, you're in Tongue, you're looking for a place to get away to, this is the place. The Cutters, mwah. Listen, I'll be having some just now again. We'll talk about that. And then, of course, the ambience is beautiful, fully air conditioned. The decor is on point. The music's on point. Everything's on point. It's just me. I need some work. But everything else that belongs to this club here is on point. So if you want to find a nice little place where you can just drive out of town and have some drinks, have some food, you can call, you can order your stuff and just take it. You don't have to stay. Or if you want to stay here, that's what's up. And of course, they have special events for Valentine's. You can rent a hall. You can rent a hall, honey. You can rent a hall for weddings, for birthday parties, to have a bash. I hope he edits that out. But you know, whatever it is, this is definitely the place to be. So it's on Sideline Dam. You definitely want to ensure that you check this place out. But it's on your to-do list. All right, on your to-do list. This is definitely the place to check out, you know, a really cool, chill spot here in Buxton. I like this. Buxton needed this. We needed this. I needed this. You definitely needed too. Thank you. All right, so you might be wondering where we are. Still in Buxton at Club Twilight. That's where we are. So Club Twilight also has like an Airbnb as well. So you could come, drink, drunk, and come in the back here and lie down. Look at that. Look at that. Perfection. And the people come in the room and so on. The bed sheet matching the blind, matching the carpet, matching the this, matching the that. We know but we things in Buxton don't play with we. So definitely, if you want to come and you know you may be having a wedding or whatever, and you just want to overnight and just have a good time because you're gonna be drunk. We got too much road accidents, so you definitely want to come drink, have a good time. They have several rooms that you can rent. You have your toilet, you have your bath, you have your sink, you have your dining area, you have the. This is nice. I like it. Anyways, to my friends and my family, if you're looking for me, I'll be overnighting. Also, for those persons who are traveling in from overseas, you want a nice, cozy place out of town, then Club Twilight, call them up, look them up on social media. They have their own Facebook page, and ensure that you come up the side and have a good time. Have a good time. Have a good time. Sorry, I'm sorry. That's it.
Don't be a victim. Beat the heat with EC crystals. Party ice in large and small quantities. Call 682-7981 or visit us at Club Twilight, Sideline Dam, Buxton North. EC crystals, pure party ice. You can get meat anywhere, but for the best cuts of chicken, beef, pork, mutton, and lots more, check out T and W Harris Butcher Shop located in the East Ramvelt Market Meat section. Call us on 609-7168, 641-4494. Ask for Rastaman. T and W Harris Butcher Shop for the best in fresh cut meats and lots more. Planning a party? Worry no more. We have all the supplies you need. At EC Party Rentals, we have folding chairs, folding tables, square tables, round tables, long tables, short tables, big tables. We have chairs, red chairs, gold chairs, white chairs, crystal chairs, chairs of all type, throne chairs. What you want, we have. Food warmers, coolers, ice, beverages. At EC Party Rentals, we have what you need to have a good time. You plan the party, we do the work. Call us 622-5933. Easy Party Rentals. Let's keep your party going. Are you hosting an event? Do you need ice, party ice in large or small quantities? Then call us at 622-5933 for the best party ice available. $1,000 per bag. We do delivery. EC Crystals, Sideline Dam, Buxton North. Call to have your orders filled today. Are you looking for tents to rent? Well, look no further. At EC Party Rentals, Sideline Dam, Buxton North, we have tents in all sizes and colors. All sizes of tents we have. Small tents, big tents, medium tents, extra large tents. Call us on 622-5933. We have what you need. Easy Party Rentals. Big on tents.
Morning. Welcome to another program of Guyanese Morning Time. I am your host, Kidaki Amsterdam. Oh boy, you want to girl, I envy you, but I wish I could get a holiday too. But do enjoy the beautiful island of Antigua. Be a good ambassador as you are. I know you're going to be a good ambassador for us here in Guyana. Do your thing. I see the send them so early out. Fix arrows. I don't know where the animal come from. At the bottom of which rock it came from. And he got some things to say. But you know, this morning I'm listening to Brain. How are you? How was it yesterday, people? Was yesterday a rainy day? I seem to believe yesterday has been rainy. I can't remember. It rained a little. Sporadic, is that the word? It rained a little here, a little there. You had a little smattering. here and a smattering there. Right? Yeah. So I think we had a few scattered showers. Can't remember though. Which means in my mind nothing magnificent happened yesterday. That is from where I am sitting. That is what I'm thinking. But I'm sure somebody will tell me, Mr. Amsterdam, you really understand what's going on. The amount of trouble you creating and you are creating for this government and GCOM and all of that, you say nothing magnificent in at me yesterday. You best think again. And still thinking again. Because I know we have to continue the fight, and the fight continues. Dead Fowl say that he is not a legal advisor for GCOM, but he gives GCOM legal advice. Right? It's like Ashni Singh is not the Minister of Finance, but he has responsibility for finance. And when these people make these statements and we allow them to pass, we confirm in their heads that we have some really stupid people in this country. And so the most I can beg y'all is, don't give them the victory. Do not give them that victory. I saw a beautiful analogy yesterday. Last evening I was looking through comments, I think, somewhere. And I saw somebody say the AG giving GCOM advice. The AG was a political appointee giving GCOM advice. It's like a boxer giving the referee advice as to how to referee. Right? It's naturally advised that the AG is going to give the AG as a political appointee. I will keep stressing that point because in other countries, the AG is impartial, independent, not a member of any political party. As a matter of fact, if you look at the US, the Attorney General has to go through a string of congressional hearings, I think, and all kinds of things. He might be nominated or she might be nominated by a particular party. But they have to go through those hearings, and if selected, they are expected to be impartial. No loyalty to party, loyalty to the Constitution. But in Guyana, we see a totally different issue. Totally different issue. The AG is politically appointed by one political party, no consultation. And since the AG is a political appointee, the AG will serve its political masters. The hell was the Constitution? I will interpret the Constitution as I see best. And of course, I will interpret it to give my team an advantage over any other team. But no, I'm not a legal officer for GCOM. I am just giving GCOM legal advice as requested by the chairperson. So I really and truly, I don't know who's stupid and who's stupider in this country. But I know they really take us for fools. And we have to show that we're no fools. Even if we don't get them to change the decisions, we must highlight what is wrong with the decisions. Good. So keep your eyes over GCOM. Keep your eyes over GCOM and let us continue to pinpoint what is wrong with GCOM and why we don't expect the delivery of a free, fair, incredible elections from GCOM. It's 5-1 over there, 5-3. 5 commissioners they got at GCOM supporting the PPP cars. Those 5 include the chairman of the commission and the AG. 5 of them over there against 3 opposition nominated commissioners. Good. I commented on that shooting in Moore yesterday, and I was saying to you that from where I sit, if I were to believe the reports that were received, I'm tempted to believe that the security officer is the one who shot that young man. Given the fact that I was told that the wound, the visible wound, was in the abdomen. Okay? And I did say, well, we will be able to determine that definitively after the postmortem. Well, I understand the postmortem was done, and my mind is still fuzzy as to who really shot the young man, because the information I expected to get from the postmortem, I didn't get. Yes, they confirmed that he died from shock as a result of a gunshot injury. But they didn't say, at least I didn't hear them say, which was the entry and which was the exit point of the missile. The bullet, as we like to say, the warhead. According to the mother, they did say they found a fragment in his body. And they're suggesting that the rest must have exited. But exited where? That is my question still. If the family wants more information, they must get a lawyer to write to the pathologist to get the detailed report. Is that how it's done? According to the mother, the family wasn't allowed to witness the postmortem. Is that how it's done? So the police is involved in a shooting, and only the police gets to oversee the postmortem or witness the postmortem. That sounds like a bundle of balderdash to me. Sounds like foolishness to me. Yeah, it's a police matter, as we like to say, it's a police death. But doesn't the family have a right to witness the postmortem? Those who know, y'all could tell me, because it seems as though I'm crazy. Kaicho is reporting today that according to the police, ballistics conducted on the fragment or fragments found in the body of the young man established that those fragments came from the ammunition of an AR rifle. Who was carrying the AR? The security from, I think they say the company he works for is called Force Security. Excellent, something is in the air. Force Security. And there were 2 security officers actually involved, according to the police, and both of them are under arrest along with 2 police officers. And both of the, this country is a funny place. There's talking of the police chasing this young man through the streets and licking shot. Right? Licking shot. But the only spent shells they found were from, well, they found the fragment, according to them, from the AR rifle that is security officer Musinden was carrying. Messiah Musinden, I think the name is, a 20-something-year-old. And another security officer, I can't remember his name, but he was carrying a small arm. Maybe a Glock, I think. I can't remember. But those are the fragments and shells and so on they found from the security officers. They didn't say they found anything from the police. So the question is, did they do ballistics on the weapons that the police were carrying? What were the findings there? What were the findings there? But if you're saying to me that police are involved in this shooting and the only people witnessing this post-mortem are police, then I put in cat to watch milk. I put in cat to watch milk. Quite frankly, in situations like those, you need an independent observer, someone who is trained, someone who is knowledgeable, to be present to witness that post-mortem, even alongside the police. Because there's that blue wall of silence that we always talk about. Police just watch out for police. Police got police back. And so the question is whether or not the information received is accurate. Yeah, whether or not the information received is accurate. But if it is accurate in that the security officer shot the guy, it brings to the fore a whole lot of questions that we must ask in terms of these security officers and what gives them the right or gives them the belief that they have the right to shoot citizens even if they are fleeing from the police. What is the duty of a security officer? And I think for that particular program, I might very well have to ask Paul to join us. I don't know if he has the time tomorrow. I will ask him to make a quick peek in so we can talk more about that. But in the meantime, it's Thursday. It is Mr. Jordan's day. And so let me see if I get Mr. Jordan, and so we can proceed from the program. With the program, that is.
Hello.
I nearly say you're sleeping late, big man.
I tell you, I woke up slightly later today. And when I woke up, I got to do the second turn. But I remember when you do a second turn, it lasts longer than the first one. Weather nice to stay in bed, man. You know, weather nice to stay in bed. It's nicer though when you don't have to. Yes, I said it's nicer when you don't have to rush and prepare to get to work or so on, you know. Good when this weather catch you on retirement or on vacation or some other thing that says that you're not going to work today. Unless like you're doing the song today, you call your boss and say, I'm not coming into work today.
I can't see.
You could afford to
myself working today,
job, I suppose. Yes, but another Thursday, thankful Thursday, and blessings all to those who are on the live today and so far. It's the silly season. It's the election season. Lots of things are happening in this season here. As you know, how many? 26, 5 plus 12, 17 days ago, we had this unheralded announcement of elections to be held on September 4th, 17 days ago. And while there may be some activity that's going on at GCOM, the activity in relation to dissolving the parliament, we don't see any movement towards that. You know, in Guyana, many things happen that tend not to happen in anywhere else. You know, I can't say that this might have been the first time, But as I do recall, very often, when you announce the date of the election, certain things flow. And one of them is the dissolution of Parliament. All right. So that unheralded announcement of on May the 26th, Independence Day for Guyana, Memorial Day in the United States, as I recall. On that day, this September the 1st date was sprung upon us. But it doesn't seem as if it was thought through, because up to now, you don't know when this parliament is going to be dissolved. And there's a lot of speculation, not about the movement of the date for the election, but as to why parliament is being kept open until the last minute, and we will see where those speculations will come to. But I want to just take this opportunity to tell all of those who had made plans, because sometimes we make plans very, very early to go off on our quote-unquote summer holidays. Everything now we're taking from America and North America. Growing up, is the August holidays, right? The long August holidays, but suddenly we get caught up in the summer holidays, and during the August holidays when school is out, we used to look forward to going and visit our parents in the country, right? Whether it's Buxton or West Berbice, Quarantine, the Cinderella County, Essequibo Coast, West Demerara, and so on, where we will indulge in activities that the city did not afford, whether it's swimming in the trench, catching fish, and climbing trees, right? Because fruit trees abound in the country. You used to look forward to all those things. And when school reopened in September, not August, which happened at least one time in Guyana, so the school opened in August, right? Because when we said, like, you went to school in August, it means like either you're done so you're stupid or some sort of thing. But things are changing. Things are changing. So these days when we're planning our holidays, if we're that fortunate, we're planning on leaving Guyana, right? We're planning on leaving Guyana. And as I said, if we're that fortunate, we plan on leaving Guyana for United States, with Canada and at that time, a lesser extent, Britain and so on, running a distant second or third. So I know a lot of people have planned their vacation leaving Guyana to go to United States, and for it to coincide with Labor Day, which just so happens to be September the 4th, which is the first Monday in September, and that is Labor Day in the United States. So it is hard to ask those persons, because it is not the fear to United States can break a bank. It's going to be very difficult to ask them to postpone their travel and stay back to vote on election day. But I will still ask them to do so, those who can, because every vote counts. And I'm equally asking those who, especially in the West Indian community, waited around to help celebrate that occasion of Labor Day, for them to muster passage to come home and vote. Because the odds are against us. It is stacked against us in every department. And as a result, every vote counts where that is concerned. So those who still have the wherewithal and can book a flight to spend their Labor Day in Guyana and at the same time vote, and who knows, I don't know if the 100,000 will be available up to then, but you can also collect your 100,000. Register and collect your 100,000. Unless, of course, the government feels, well, if it's going to exit, then we're done with the 100,000. But who knows? You may still be able to collect a part of your passage in the 100,000. Right? So my appeal is for both sides, those who live in Guyana around that time, and those who are staying in New York for the Labor Day, to see how best your plans can be adjusted to come to Guyana or stay in Guyana to make your vote, to vote and make it count. You see, a lot of people may say, okay, I ain't there on that, I overs that, and the usual talk. But a number of very same people would be the force to be shouting in the bars and in the rum shops and wherever else about what is going wrong in the country. But when they had a chance to make a difference, they don't. I was listening to Amanzo on her recent podcast or whatever, response to Ali yesterday. And she was saying that businessmen have been complaining or have complained to her about not getting contracts, and about being sidelined, and about being pushed out by other contractors, foreign contractors, and so on. And I rolled my eyes and said, what else is new? You get all these complaints and so on. But when the people have a chance to make a difference, they vote the same way that they voted before. In most cases, they don't make the difference. How do you expect to get improvement if your advocacy is silent? How do you expect to make a difference if all you do is complain? You don't want to be part of the change. And the biggest part of that change is to vote on election day. You hear other people say, me am political. From the time you're born, you're political. It's just at a different stage of politics. You may not be in politics, but politics is in you. And at various stages, we develop that politics in us. But the ultimate is the vote. Because afterwards, what you're complaining about, when you don't vote, you vote for whoever gets into power. It's as simple as that. When you don't vote, you vote for the person who ultimately gets into power. And it's only one time in 5 years, in our case, and 4 years in the United States, where you get that chance. And it has to be such a deliberative effort, because you're not going to get another opportunity in the next 5 years. Yeah. And to remove a president in Guyana who has been installed is like pushing the stone up the mountain. So forget that. All recall legislation all over the world, they're so difficult, they should be taken off the books. Extremely difficult to recall a president once installed. Certainly in Guyana. So you have to be very deliberative whenever you're going to that box. And you cannot be persuaded. You cannot be persuaded by a $5,000 dangled in front of your face on the day of the elections. either to vote in a certain way or to stay home from voting in the way that you wanted to vote. And these are things that have characterized our elections in the past. Yeah, some people calling, as soon as election day come wrong, I can vote them out. I can vote them out and so on. And on the day of the election, you can't find those persons. The day after elections, you see them. Boy, I didn't see you at the poll, but what happened? Boy, I had belly work. Boy, I had other things to do. Boy, I wasn't in town. You get every excuse. Within a short space of time, they're back to the belly aching that they had before the elections. How long can we continue this behavior? How long? It seems that the watchword in this season, or the buzzword during this silly election season, is crossover. Not crossover, but crossover. And it seems as if the intent is to humiliate the other major party in this country, the PNC/R. So every day you get a named cross over to the other side. And many of these people aren't the Chandy Singhs and the Vincent Tikos, powerful ideologues of the PPP who crossed over in the 70s from the PPP to the PNC. These aren't ideologues. These aren't people who believe tremendously in the ideology that they followed. Ranjit Chandy Singh, who eventually headed the PNC's ideological school called the Coffee Ideological Institute. Vincent Tiko, who became Minister of Education. Halim Mujid, who was one time the head of the PYO, and who is now currently serving as ambassador in Cuba. He was made ambassador to Cuba under the coalition government. And he continued. He is one of probably the only ambassador who was not removed after the PP was installed on August the 2nd, 2020. And they had so many others, Lal Bachan, you know, and so on, Silo Baichan, who the trade union leader, all those crossed over. They brought with them political capital. Political capital. But the crossovers in the recent days, I'm not certain what political capital they bring into the PPP. In fact, indeed, some people in the PPP are beginning to watch them with funny eyes. The eyes that we should have been watching them when they cross over to the coalition. But we feel like in many other ways to watch. Our intelligence was virtually zero. I say that not guardedly, but intentionally, because if we had our intelligence antenna up, and if we acted on whatever intelligence was given to us, the vote of confidence or no confidence, whichever you want to find and so on, would not have happened. Would not have happened. And I maintain all those who claim that they are Bornhamite and they're Bornham this and they're disciples of Bornham and so on would know that had Bornham been in power and had Bornham been leading the PNC, a vote of confidence or no confidence would not have taken place. He was that astute. So maybe all those who claim in their followers, disciples, and all this kind of thing born up should take some time to study the man, his works, his actions, his beliefs, his policies, and so on, before thinking that because you joined the PNC, you're there 50 years and 60 years and so on, it means that you are a Bornamite. But yes, Chandy Singh and those brought political capital. And there are people in the PPP who are now beginning to ask what them coming for. Well, they will know. Except that the PPP has more rigor than the PNC when it comes to those crossovers and how they deal with them. Yes, the odd person may get an ambassadorial posting to a hardship country. They ain't gonna get the plum postings to Canada and United States and so on. You may get a posting to a hardship country and you got to go there and bear your chief. But generally, the rest will just be integrated into the general population. Unlike in the coalition where somebody could join, they said so. They said so on the interview that they joined the coalition in January of 2020. And within the space of within the space of months, they were elevated to the highest, most prestigious position in the region, that of regional chairman. Within the space of months, a political novice was elevated to the highest position in the biggest region by population in the entire country. Knowing fully well that unlike a member of parliament, which because of the recall legislation that was put in place with the concurrence of Corbyn and Jagdeo at the time, and is now law, and they can be recalled from parliament, no such legislation exists or mechanism exists for recalling a councillor or a chairman once they're elected to the region chairman, to the regional democratic council. If there is, then any lawyer listening to this can correct me. I'll be happy to withdraw or amend the statement. But the point I'm making is, will still remain. You put a political novice to head the biggest region in the country. And when in 2023, as a result of some alleged incident, the leader of the PNC asks you to resign, or not ask you, he didn't ask actually, he made the statement that CRAM should resign, which is not asking him to resign, but it's just telling him to do the right thing and resign. You know, it's like you just brush that away like a fly swatter, because you know that's the best that he could do. He can't do anything else but just suggest that you could resign. It is up to you if you wanted to resign or not. But he held on up to today because, as we all know, he has not resigned, and he did not resign while he pledged his allegiance to some other place. But I want people to see that when life gives you lemon, you must make lemonade. In adversity, there is strength. In other words, then, Don't like everybody else look at the pessimist side, at the negative side of negative things. As Newton's law, if I remember my physics well, I think it was the force law, I think. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. When Charandas in December of 2018 did what he did and brought down the government, I remember I was there that day. And I remember the pall of gloom that fell in the chambers and the pall of gloom that fell on the whole population, on the society. I remembered. And I said to myself, this year doesn't look good. Because if people remembered well, our own supporters had begun to push back openly that they weren't benefiting from our development strategy. There was a lot of grumblings out there and so on. And many people thought that didn't bode well for us going into the election. But as we went through Christmas, well, even before because I think the no confidence motion happened before Christmas. Even before then, we decided to go and do a walkabout in Georgetown and hold a kind of rally around Stabrook Market and so on. And the pushback began in earnest. Because what we heard from those people as we walked about and so on was, yes, they were upset with us for not bringing more benefits to their life and so on. But that it wasn't enough for one of our own kind to vote against us. And it made them angry. It made them angry. And they decided that they are going to vote heavily for the coalition in the upcoming election. And everywhere we went subsequently in our walkabouts, look at the crowds, go back and check the crowds in all the different areas. That is why it's a pill so large to swallow that we lost the 2020 election. Yes, I know crowds don't mean votes. And shouts don't mean sales. But you got to be a cyclop or something else to think that everywhere that we went and what we were here in the ground and the work that we had put in would have resulted in our loss. And all the excuses that being made, you listen to them. Nobody has a consistent set of excuses as to so-called why the coalition lost. Everybody comes up with their own. Oh, it's because you close sugar estates make you lost. When Jagyo started closing sugar estates, he's the first one who started closing sugar estates. Did he lose? No, but we lost because we closed sugar estates. When people talk to Charan, they ask after you vote, why you voted against your own government? Or you didn't like the treatment of the coalition against the sugar workers. And I tell people, go to the Hansard, which is the official recording of the parliament. Go to the Hansard and check Charandas' speech on the 2019 budget, which was debated just before the coalition, thank the Lord, was debated just before the no confidence motion. Thank the Lord. Thank the Lord for my persistence in cabinet that the budget must be proceeded upon before any no confidence motion is debated in parliament. Yes, I put it out there. Now, I was forceful in my argument that we must do the budget first before we debate any no confidence motion. I'm not a soothsayer, but that was like prescient advice. Because had we not have a budget in place in 2019, I don't know what else would have eaten our dinner if we didn't have such a budget in place in 2019. But go check the Hansard and see and read Charan Das's speech on the debate of the 2019 budget. Yes, nobody can come up with any consistent reasons for the installation of the present government in August of 2020. But like I said, our intelligence was not as laser focused as during the Barnum days. And I don't know, now things are worse. It is stacked against the opposition. And the opposition has its own problems of unity and so on. But like I said, let us use those as galvanizing efforts in this election. Because for the opposition to lose an election that is within their grasp is literally to lose Guyana for the foreseeable future. I ask myself every day how anybody from the coalition could go across to a government that was responsible for what happened in Moko. Every time I watch that video of that girl in the blue short in that mud, being pressed down in that mud, all I see is the slavery and the abominable treatment of my ancestors, meted out by white people, white colonialists, the white planters. And to see that kind of behavior return by another kind of people, same behavior, and you are going to tell me in the name of individualism that you are going to cross over to a party and government responsible for that abominable behavior. It just convinces me that there are all kinds in this world, all kinds. So the latest crossover, I don't know if he's a crossover because, well, let's call him crossover anyhow, because maybe they got different kinds. Those who are literally crossover and will be working with the government, with the Ali government, and those who are crossovers in terms of their support, but they will not be physically working with the government and so on. I don't know. There are several kinds. But the latest crossover is former Vice President. I think he was the number 4 in line, yes. Number 1 was Nagamutu. Number 2 was Greenwich. Number 3 was Ramjatan. And number 4 was Alikak. So the latest crossover is Sydney Alikak. I don't know where he was resurrected from, but since August 2020, he, like so many other ministers, members of parliament, of the then coalition government disappeared. Disappeared. In the last nearly 5 years, they disappeared from public view, never once appearing to defend the policies, programs, activities, actions of the coalition government in any sector, much less the sector that they commanded and was responsible for. Majority of them. Huge majority of them. And so suddenly, VP Ali Kok appears and says he pledges support for Ali. I like Ali Kok. He's a likable fellow, genial and jovial, and so on. The plus of his crossover is that he's not a member of parliament. He's not a member of any regional body. I don't know that he was a member of the coalition, even though his party, GAP, maintained some association with the APNU. And one of his members, I think Cox or whatever is his name, is a member of parliament, and so on. And he was careful to say that he's not, his sentiment and his crossover has nothing to do with his party because he didn't consult with his party. So he was doing it in his own name. He was doing it in his own name. And he had a very funny part where he said, in the coalition it was politics, but now his endorsement is politricks. I wish he would explain what he meant with that. But I have no problem with VP Ali Kok, you know, and his crossover. Like I said, he did it with from some moral position, unlike many of the others. Unlike many of the others. You know, there's a time in politics when in families, either you went fully with the one party or you hedge your bets, particularly under the Burnham administration, PNC administration. Families would hedge the bet. So one will be with the PPP and one will be the PNC. And in that way, it was a win-win, right? It was a win-win. Mr. Ali Kok's brother, I think, is Brian Ali Kok, who is the PPP's regional chairman in region number 9. And funny enough, even while he was VP, and notwithstanding the huge spending in that region under the coalition government, spending for which we were viscerally, don't want attack, I don't want to use that word attack or condemn, but what many of our supporters as we went around told us, especially after the no confidence motion, that we were spending in regions that didn't bring us greater number of votes while neglecting a lot of areas where we got tremendous number of votes. So notwithstanding him being a vice president of Indigenous Peoples Affairs, and notwithstanding the huge uptick in spending in Region 9, we weren't able to win Region 9, according to the numbers, according to the figures. Like I said, up to this day, and especially based on the recount, those are the most suspect results in terms of valid votes cast for any recent elections or any post-1992 elections. So, like I said, I like Mr. Alikak. And his endorsement, which came free of any, baggage, whether it's party baggage or parliamentary baggage or whatever, right? He gets a pass. He gets a pass. But like I said, it is always strange that when adversity steps in, it is easier to run off the ship than to put heads together to right the ship. And like some people have been suggesting, maybe some of these people are getting on in age and they're not, and their energy, they're tired. Most of the energy gone. And so they want to live out the rest of their lives in cushy circumstances. And they're seeing all these millions and billions flying past their way. And they can't reach out and collect because they're too distant. So they're trying to shorten that distance to reach out and collect by crossing over. I say to the supporters of the opposition, particularly PNC supporters, not to lose faith, to hold the fort, and as in a tug of war, to dig in deeper, dig in your heels deeper, and pull with all your strength. And pull with all your strength. Over the last nearly 5 years, you must ask yourself whether you are better off. Not because you were able to buy a reconditioned car, because that is how these people measure progress. They measure progress by the fact that you could put 10,000 cars on the road in Guyana every 3 months. That is progress. We don't have highways like in Trinidad, and certainly we don't have the transportation system of a Canada or a United States or a Britain or anyone in the developed countries. We don't have that. And even there, you could see chock-a-block. Chock-a-block. But we are measuring progress by the fact that you could put 10,000 cars on these couple roads that we have every 3 months. We have no public transport system. Little Barbados, public transport system, along with the minibus system, along with cars. But in Guyana, chock-a-block with money and with couple roads, think about it. It's couple roads we got. You got the East Coast Road, which is 2-lane in some places, and 1 lane for the most part. You got the East Bank Road. You got the recently built Heroes Highway. You got West Demerara Road and and a piece of West Demerara Crane. You have the Linden Soosdijk Highway, and you have the Borbis, the Quarantine Highway. Those are our key roads in Guyana. Those are our key roads. The rest are little concrete strips or dams or so on. And it is on this system that we are putting 10,000 cars every 3 months. And we call that progress. Progress. These cars, for the most part, that are reconditioned, they are rejects from the developed countries. They don't meet the emission standards and whatever else of those countries, and we import them. No problem. They got a bit more life left in them and so on. But remember, we talk here about green and climate change and selling bonds as a con, because all of these cars that we are bringing here helping because they are rejects from some other place. They're helping to affect the ozone layer and all these kinds of things, smog and all these kinds of story. And what is worse in Guyana's case, look, you check on the East Bank early in the morning, and you are in a car idling for a long time while the line is stand still, because the line that comes from the bridge, the Mar Harbor Bridge and so on. And you are in there and you have an asthma person and you can't open that window because of the smoke or whatever else, the air, the foul air that will be breathed in. So you keep that open, you keep your air condition running and so on. And you multiply that by thousands and thousands and thousands of cars and see what you are doing for Guyana. And then you're out there, hello, oh, we got carbon sink and this kind of thing and so on. Yeah, indeed we have. But what it is that we are doing to it, aren't we destroying it slowly but surely? And I'm not even talking about the flaring that's going on outside. And the more SPSOs you add out there, is the more the flaring that you're going to do. And it's the more the flaring that you're going to be destroying the atmosphere and contributing to climate change. Yes, progress. 10,000 cars being put every 3 months. And I can't move from South Rhineville to Georgetown in that short space of time that I used to do it. Now, every time I got to move, you got to scratch your head. What is the best time to leave? Hoping that traffic would be not as bad. What is the best time? And all those side streets you have to try and duck into, only to find out that everybody else is thinking the same way and blocked up the same side streets and so on. That is progress. That is progress, according to the government. 10,000 cars. And people got more disposable income, so 10,000 cars. But this government will not talk about a public transportation system. Only yesterday I was talking to somebody, and they said to me, because I was telling them my grandson goes to New Guyana School, which is just around the corner from me here. And even there, you got to leave early. Because as soon as they come out of my street and you turn, it's a long line of cars. So it could take you anywhere between 20 minutes to half an hour just to get to that little school. She said, you're lucky. She told me, boy, you lucky. Think about the fact if you got to leave South Rhineville to take your child to the School of the Nations or that school in Carifesta Avenue, that Catholic school in Marion's Academy. She said, think about whether you got to leave South Rhineville to go there. Much less if you're coming from, say, Diamond to bring your child to one of these schools. Think about the time. And, it's sometimes when you talk about productivity and productive hours lost, when you talk about productive and productive hours lost, those are things we don't do in this country, right? Not counting the number of holidays we got more than glory. We don't do those in this country. Productive hours lost. But people got to wake up early when they living in Diamond and these places so early just to make certain that you try to beat traffic. And if they don't wake up early, they're stuck in that traffic. And by the time you get to work, a work that's supposed to start at 8 o'clock, you're reaching there for 9 and 9:30. And you then have to do that back in the afternoon to go and pick up your child at 2:30 or 3 o'clock and run them to lessons. Because this great education system that you talk about, you're cutting ribbon all over the place. I will talk about that just now. You're cutting ribbon all over the place. But this great education system you're talking about, you still got to run your child. No matter they're going to Queen's College or bishops and so on, you still got to run them to lessons all over the place. And those lesson teachers, they never get the kudos when all the fancy results come out for the top 0.00% of those who write the exams. They never get kudos. But of course, then they get paid handsomely anyhow. But yes, think about it. You got to run them to lessons in South. Then they got to rush back there from South and run them to Bel Air. And from Bel Air, you got to rush them to the East Bank at Mr. X and so on. But all of that is progress. Progress, my friend, that is progress. That's how they measure progress. And of course, this is the silly season. Silly season of elections, where there will be a lot of meeting people, pounding the flesh, kissing babies. It will be the season of manufactured statistics, lies, liars, liards. But importantly, it is the season of cutting ribbons. Cutting ribbons. This morning, I think I was reading of the Minister of Education going to some place, but it's some place maybe in the deep south or whatever, to cut a ribbon to open, I think it's a kindergarten or nursery school. It's not something that the regional education officer can do. Isn't it something that the regional education officer could do? Or the tusha of the village or whatever? No, not at all. Not at all. That is a work for the Minister of Education. She doesn't have more important work to do in Georgetown as the top policy advisor or the top policy maker in the education sector. She has to leave. She can afford to leave there and go somewhere in the south or deep south or wherever else it was. This nursery school, a small, flat-bottom nursery school is being thing. It's not to say the school is not important. What I'm trying to point to is that because this is the silly season, you got these ministers running around to cut ribbon to open a gate, to cut ribbon to open a sluice, to cut ribbon to open a play field. And you'll get all these cutting ribbons. From alley right down, they will be cutting ribbons all over. There is this thing called visibility now. Where we weren't before, we are going to be visible now. And so in the cutting ribbon story, you had a ribbon that was cut. I think, was it last week Saturday or was it Sunday? When the Diamond Regional Hospital was inaugurated or opened, don't forget, it was under the same PPP government that opened the Diamond Hospital that they're now closed, and that was opened somewhere around 2008. And that hospital has now been closed. I think it was open around the same time that the Enmore Polyclinic or whatever it was open. Those two regional hospitals, right? They went to Trinidad, or they had somebody from Trinidad come here and study it and tell them, well, you could do the same thing because Trinidad has these regional corporations, and they have these regional hospitals. I think it's Chaguanes or something like that. Yes, you could do it. So they went and they put in Diamond, and they went and put in Enmore, right? Around 2008 or thereabout. So that hospital is now closed. You see how these people don't plan, they don't think, they don't do anything. So now all the money, and by the way, it's only, I think it's last year, they spent a whole set of money to upgrade that hospital to a smart hospital with British money, British input. Millions of dollars was spent to upgrade that hospital to a smart hospital. And less than 1 year later, it's closed. The smart hospital is closed. Upgrading the hospital, even though they knew they were building the new Diamond Hospital or regional hospital, whatever they're calling it. Even though they knew that, they were wasting money upgrading that to a smart hospital. Now the smart hospital is a dunce. It's a dunce building because it is now being closed. And a ribbon has been cut opening this new hospital. But I didn't hear they calling it smart. I didn't hear them calling the new Diamond Smart Hospital. But based on the pictures I've seen and so on, it has in some shiny new smart equipment and so on. And I asked myself the question, because you see, it's already rearing its ugly head in a different way. I asked myself the question, and that we have been asking from day one when we came in and saw them take $50 million from Inyo. $50 million from Inyo to build some specialty hospital. Nobody could tell you when we came in what is this specialty hospital would be concentrating on. And nobody could tell you where we're going to get the specialist skills, doctors and nurses and so on, for this specialty hospital. But a man went there. I see you writing a lot these days. President Ramatar, writing lots of letters these days. I guess he got a lot of free time on the hand these days. Went to Inyo, get $50 million to build a specialty hospital at a time when the health sector in this country was at its lowest. You're going to get money not to upgrade those hospitals, not to improve them, but to build specialty hospital. Yes. And we asked where the skills coming from. Nobody could tell us. So you have the problem right now. They're now saying they don't have the skills to run those hospitals. They don't have the skills. So they're going to have to import the skills. You see, people, be wary. Be wary. A nice shiny building, paint up nice, got in nice fancy equipment and so on. The question is, who have we been training to operate those equipment on an ongoing basis? Who? Where have they been trained? Have they been trained at Jane deemed to be a university? Or similar institutions? Who are they? Read today's papers, read yesterday's papers, they will tell you that's why the doctors them are complaining about the new rotation and all this kind of story. Overworked doctors are prone to mistakes. And not because you're giving the service free means that it could be anyhow. But that is why, notwithstanding all these shiny new buildings, people are still flocking to the private hospitals in the hope that they are going to get better treatment. Government, what does that tell you? You have to pay to play. You know what, one time, to digress a little, people were talking about the Canadian health system and the British health system, how, you know, it's so better than the expensive American health system, and how people from America used to run across the border to Canada because the health system was so superior and so on. Well, have you asked about it lately? A friend of mine who is a citizen of Canada, her son, her son's knee locked up and couldn't walk. Locked. In other words, then you can't flex it, you can't bend, you can't walk. Rushed to the hospital in Canada. Rushed him to the hospital. This was about, I think it was like about 4 or 5 in the afternoon. Rushed him to the hospital in Canada. You know, by next morning, he had not even seen a doctor. And therefore took his own discharge because he couldn't wait there anymore. Now you say, oh, that might be an aberration and all this kind of story. But my intention tells me that this is a frequent occurrence. This is a frequent occurrence. And anybody will tell you about the NHS, the National Health System in England. Anybody will tell you about it. This is not a plea for private intervention, private fee paying intervention. Not a plea. It is a plea, however, for governments to recognize that there's no free lunch, there's no freeness, because freeness will come at a price. Freeness will come at a price. And that price is poor service. So you could have the greatest shiny equipment and everything that you put in there. Oh, I saw all them brand new equipment with the plastic on them and so on. And I said to myself, hey man, this looks good. It looks good. But do you have the trained people in the numbers to operate that system 24/7? No breaks, no closing gate that happened at the Diamond Hospital that you just closed down. 24/7. Do they have the caliber of skills to run such an hospital? And the answer is an unmitigated no. Notwithstanding that none other than the health minister some time ago, last year or the year before, was crowing that they're gonna be ready with the skills because they're training and blah 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 blah. Read today's papers. They're acknowledging that they don't have the skill set to run those hospitals. And this is the first one. That's one at Diamond. There are 5 more like these to be opened. But they're running to cut ribbon. That is important. They don't care. Cut the ribbon, splash it all over the place. Get the highfalutin people to go there because it's election season. Look what we're doing for the people. And those very people know by the time they go to that hospital, they can't get service. They can't get service. And oh, by the way, did I tell you where these regional hospitals are located? You talk about one Guyana? No, there are 2 Guyanas, not one Guyana. There are 2 Guyanas. Not one of these 6 regional hospitals is located in an Afro or African or a non-Indian area then. An Indian area meaning they vote solidly for the party in government. Yes, the 6 regional hospitals are located in Enmore, which, as you well know, was the beneficiary of a polyclinic, which at that time, when it was built, was a modern something. Enmore, Diamond, Bath Settlement, Skeldon, Anna Regina, and I think it's Lenora on the West Demerara. It might be Anna Katrina or Lenora, but it is an Indian village. Yes, that is the one Guyana in which we are living. That is what the crossovers don't think. They don't think. They don't assess. But you got a certain man who write letter in the papers, but at least certainly I know it was carried by Kaito News. I don't know if it was carried by I know it hasn't been carried by Starbuck News, but I know it was carried by Kaito News. I don't read Chronicle nor Guyana Times, so I don't know if it was carried by those. He write letter for say how me and Dr. Hines are involving ourselves in racial commentary. If we got time, I will come to it short. I won't want to waste too much time on it. They don't want us to talk about these matters. It ain't got nothing to do. It's not we who did these things. It is the government that is telling you it is not. It is for all of us. It is for all of us, and all 6 regional hospitals have been placed strategically in Indian areas or areas that vote solidly for the PPP. But settlement, what you're going to do? Are you going to close down Fort Wellington Hospital? And the mother of all hospitals, not counting Georgetown Hospital, which is supposedly the one that is being built for women and children, is being built at Ogle. And that is behind time. So I don't know whether they're going to be able to cut a ribbon for it. That is behind time. So I'm not sure if they're going to be able to cut a ribbon for it. Because the last time I saw them hurrying up the people and telling them about how they ain't gonna get any longer time and so on. You talking about specialist people, right? Because it's those people from Austria who by the way, we had signed a memorandum of agreement with in the later days of the coalition government. They went and they took money and got those same people billing that hospital. And I think it's those very people who are also billing hospital in Another hospital, I think, is it Palmario or is it Palmario or is it New Amsterdam or the New Amsterdam hospital? New Amsterdam again, when they broke down the hospital that is in, was it that beautiful building, architectural building? Is it Winkle Road? I can't remember where. But the original New Amsterdam hospital, they broke it down. And they built the hospital where its present location is. They used Japanese funds to build that hospital. Now that hospital is being left behind like the Diamond Hospital because they're now building another hospital, a brand new hospital. Again, in New Amsterdam. It is not, I don't have a problem with these hospitals and so on. Healthcare is important like education. It is that there's no thinking, there's no study, there's no planning, there isn't no anything, there's nothing to do with catchment areas, nothing. And there's no understanding existing versus new. The West Demerara Hospital should have benefited from inputs from the Indian government under the line of credit that we took. Upgrades have been going on. Now you're hearing they're abandoning the West Demerara Hospital, which correctly, because I think that hospital perhaps suffers, it outgrown its usefulness and so on, and you need a modern hospital there. In addition to Anna Regina, I believe they're building some hospital at Saudi or something. But you have all of these things. It's like if somebody's waking up and deciding, oh yeah, you know what, we could put another one over there and so on. There's no manpower planning. There's no anything. But these things are being put there. I ask our people, don't be fooled by buildings. Buildings might be a sign of progress. But development is a different matter. Development is the extent to which those buildings, together with the systems, are able to improve your lives and your standard of living. And the second part about the cutting ribbons. Anybody remember how many ribbons have been cut over the last, say, 6 months? I'm not even going back in the last 2 years, so the last 6 months. Check and you'll see how many ribbons we cut, because everything was designed in a way that it will be a run-up to the elections. Because cutting ribbon is important to the populace. They will see that this is progress. 10,000 cars every 3 months. That's progress. Cutting ribbons here is progress. The coalition didn't do this. You see, we cutting ribbons. Ask those children who are suffering in North Rhineville Multilateral School, a school that has just been rebuilt and just handed over. Ask them the havoc that the rain is doing to them right now, to the roof. But we wanted to hurry to cut ribbon. We don't want these things to be cured, right? And so we will be able to see what they call the spider cracks and, you know, and the unevenness and so on. You think them before you hand over. Oh no, we got defects liability period. We got defects liability period. But I've been talking this matter before, and you heard me talking it before, I will speak it again. It's no sense we do the old trick of building, cutting new ribbons, and then moving on without thinking about maintenance. I've talked about it a lot because we seem just to build and move on. Whether it's roads, buildings, D&I, nothing. We seem to have no system in place for maintenance. And in fact, I was happy to see, I think this was in yesterday's papers, Civic News or so on, a letter writer talking about this same deficiency in government, the absence of proper maintenance systems. And he called for a dedicated maintenance and inspection division. And I will echo his call today. The government needs to put in place a dedicated maintenance and inspection division. Why? Because when I looked at some numbers, in the budget, between 2023 and 2024, the capital budget increased by 53.2%. Massive, more than 50%, 53.2%. And between 2024 and budget 2025, as of now, the capital budget increased by 14.2%. And of course, it's more than that because they went for supplementary. Of that 57 billion that they took, most of it was for capital. So it will be more than that 14. But let's deal with just the budget number, 14.2%. But yet, when we look at the maintenance budget, I've been able to look at some numbers of the maintenance budget. In 2023, for example, the maintenance budget was 4% of the current budget, 3.9% of the capital budget, and 2% of the current and capital budget combined. In 2024, the maintenance budget was 3.4% of the current budget. It was 2.9% of the capital budget and 1.6% of the current and capital budget combined. In 2025, at the budgeted time, if the budget were to be executed as is, the maintenance budget is 3% of the current budget, 2.6% of the capital budget, and 1.4% of the current and capital budget combined. So what you're finding here, according to this trend, is that maintenance of all the budgets, all the metrics that you take for the maintenance have been declining as capital expenditure have been increasing. So this has been declining. And on average, they say maintenance should be anywhere between 2 and 5% of your annual budget. That metric has only been achieved in 2023 of the 3 years that I'm talking about here. So it says a lot. And why I say this, because I'm concerned. You go around to all the new infrastructure that they've put in, and you're already seeing signs of decay, which is not being attended to. You're already seeing signs of, and the thing is, new infrastructure ought not to have heavy maintenance. It's supposed to give you a certain life, depending on what it is, before you engage in heavy maintenance. But in the early days, you will engage in just light maintenance. But go around, check the schools. Because I like to talk about the schools. I see the schools all the time. Check the schools. You will see signs of decay already. And you will see nobody bothering with that because we can't afford to spend that. We have to finish the other new school. And so on. We got elections coming up. People don't look at maintenance. People like to see the nice, sexy, shiny things. So we're not worrying about maintenance, certainly not going up to the elections. We got to finish the Demerara Harbor Bridge. And we got to finish, this road. And we got to ginger up them contractors to finish this thing because we got to cut a ribbon. And we got to bring smiles to the faces of the population and those who got to use it. That's all. That's all they think about. That's all they think about. But I will remind you, nothing is free. Nothing is free. And that is why, notwithstanding your child going to Queen's College and bishops and whatever else, those who can afford it, fetch the children to every lesson that they could find to give them an edge, to give them a competitive edge, give them an opportunity to pass the subjects that they're writing. Nothing against our hard-working teachers in the schools, because Lord knows, I won't want to get teacher in terms of what they go through. Many of those students aren't like us when we grew up. Well-mannered, obedient, disciplined, right? Because the discipline started from the home. Notwithstanding your mother might have been a housewife, your father might be a farmer, and all these kind of things. The discipline started from the home.
Hey, good morning. Give me a heads up if you can hear me. If you can't, tell me you can't. I'm out and about. Compliments of Peppy Link. Yeah, compliments of Peppy Link. Peppy Link. Taxi rental and so on and so forth. And so we out and about, we on the road. That is why I couldn't be in studio with you this morning. But of course, it's Free Talk Friday. Apologies there, nobody can get to talk except me, right? Only I can get to talk. And so what do we want to talk about on this good rainy Friday morning? I want us to talk about election preparation and what we are going to do about the situation over at GCOM and the fact that we got 5 commissioners against 3 over at GCOM. What are we going to do about it? Is it even worth it going into the election with those conditions? I'm asking, I'm not suggesting anything, I'm asking. What are your opinions? Should the opposition be going into the election aware of the fact that there are 5 PPP commissioners at GCOM now, one being a legal advisor who is the Attorney General, and one being the chairperson, who is supposed to be impartial to the whole thing, and just be a deal breaker, or I should say deal maker. She's supposed to be there to intervene and provide good guidance so that proper decision making can be arrived at. When I look at GCOM as it is right now, I believe it is one of the things that the next government should be forced to address in terms of how the election commission functions and how they prepare for elections. Well, I thought that was going to happen and it has happened. So you haven't just listened to me, because I can't drive and focus on video. But I'm thinking that whenever the government changes, the next government must take strident steps to change the manner in which GCOM functions as a constitutional agent. As a matter of fact, I think there needs to be strong legislative work to ensure that no government, regardless of if it's a government you like or hate, no government should have the authority, the ability, um, the freedom to interfere with the functioning of constitutional bodies. Because for too long we have seen that because of political interferences and so on, and political appointments and so on, constitutional bodies have not been serving the citizens of this country they were intended to. I'm sure the legislators call them fathers of the nation, call them what you like, trailblazers, call them what you like. I'm sure it was not their intention that the executive get to control the administrative and the judicial, because when that happens, then there are no checks and balances. And I'm saying that any government led by a group of people who are serious about wanting the best for Ghana should leave no stone unturned to change the construct, to change, even if the legislation requires changing, how it is we treat with, sorry, I'm at the stop, how it is we treat with the functioning of these constitutional bodies in terms of strict separation of powers. The other day I saw on social media, I think it was in Canada, no, right in Trinidad, yes, right in Trinidad, where the Prime Minister had an interest in finding out who were the businesses, or let me say broadly, who are the users of the most foreign exchange in the country, or who the people who had the highest demand for foreign exchange in the country. And I'd say Governor of Central Bank, I can't remember if that's the title, refused to divulge that information. Right? Refused to divulge that information. And I understand it's not the first time that such a request has been made and such refusal has been given. And you can do that when there's a strong constitution, and when there is respect for constitution, and when constitutional agencies are made to function. Why is it we can't have the same happening in Guyana? Why is it the administrative has to have its hands in every single thing, including the legislative and the judicial? Why can't we have real separation of powers? If we have not seen what the problems are that we will run into when we don't respect separation of powers so far, then we have to be a blind set of people. We definitely have to be a blind set, because all of the troubles I dare see, a whole lot of the troubles that we have in this society are as a result of politicians being allowed to push their hands into every little thing. Right? Politicians being allowed to push their hands into every little thing. The police can't function because when the police take police action, politicians call them and blaze them up and tell them to do otherwise. And so you have a lot of people who are bent on doing wrong in the society. They do wrong in the society anyhow, knowing that the police or knowing that they got political friends who will protect them. How do we deal with that? For me, I'm saying that the next government has a responsibility to revisit the legislation and ensure that systems are put in place so no other government whatsoever, regardless of, even if it's the same government in power, can continue to do such. I also believe we need election financing laws, because we need to know how these elections are financed, or how the contestation of elections are financed by political parties. Because as is visible again, I'm of the firm opinion that this government is currently utilizing the state's resources to campaign for elections. I see sirens running up and down the country. Every day there's a siren running north, running east, running west. Presidential entourage going here, going there, going there. And what they're discussing? When we return to power. In other words, they're campaigning using government resources. And for long, we have had discourses about that. It has been in the air. A lot of people have been saying that we really need to have campaign financing laws so that at the end of an election, political parties are made to declare how much they spent on elections and the source of those funds. And so they can really be kept in check. Not whoever is in government utilizes the state's resources to get an unfair advantage over its opponent. And then they claim that we have had free and fair elections. Fair elections only take place at the place of polling. It has to do with all of the preparation. It has to do with the management of the election. It has to do with so many things. And we as a people, if we really and truly consider ourselves democratic and we are really serious about our democracy, we have to start insisting that these things are put in place. We have to insist that these things are put in place. Good. So that's my two bit on what's happening as become the behavior of government, etc. I see FREETALK Friday, so I get to talk about any and everything on Friday. Like you get to talk about any and everything on Friday normally. But this morning, unfortunately, you can't because there's no calling segment. I am on the road, like I suggested to you. I'm on the road. Why am I on the road? Most of you should know by now. If you're good students, why I am on the road. Right? So now don't press yourself as to why I'm on the road. But there's so many things that become moderation in this society. And again, I think these things happen when laws are not made to function, when constitutional agencies are not supposed to function, and so on and so forth. I'm sure in developed countries there is something called a bar association that keeps lawyers in check. I'm sure there's something that's called a judicial commission that keeps judges and magistrates and so on in check, judicial workers in check. In check in the sense that if they were to misbehave, then you can very well go to those agencies, lodge your complaint, expect an investigation in a timely manner, and people will be necessarily be sanctioned, or if found not to be guilty, what's the word? Miss that word here. Be vindicated, right? In the instances of judicial workers, if you're found complicit or you're found to be guilty as charged, then you get debarred and so on. When those agencies function, then you have judicial workers, you have legal representatives, as we like to say in this country, officers of the court, behaving in a responsible manner, behaving in a respectable manner, holding themselves up to high ideals of God. But like in Ghana, when they don't function, you end up with any old situation. You end up with allegations searching left, right, center. You end up with characters being painted, and so on and so forth. Our very own Dennis Collins, who perhaps you on the live this morning, has mentioned so many times on our live through the comments that she disagreed because she had a legal matter where she and her family ended up paying, I think, $1.5 million to the court at cost because the lawyer did not turn up to represent the particular issue which he or she has to turn up. If I remember clearly, the lodge complaint, I would assume it is the Guyana Bar Association. And up until this day, there has been no satisfactory response. And so Dennis Collison is one of the persons who can perhaps identify with this issue of quote-unquote officers of the law behaving, again, I would say allegedly inappropriately and getting away with not even as much as a slap on the wrist. Why am I talking about that? I'm talking about that because I'm seeing in the media, and note I am seeing in the media, according to a program hosted by Margaret Shop, to the relatives of Adriana Young, a lot of allegations are being made against our good friend and champion, because I think Darren really is the champion, at least he stood out there for quite a while, fighting the causes of those of us who are being hunted by this government and pressed by this government as well. Right? And so it pains me, quite frankly, to witness what I want to call it public fallout and all of these allegations being leveled at Darren now, that he has collected money from people on behalf of the family and they have not been told about it or they have not received it and stuff like that. It's troublesome, to say the least. And I know Mark Bishop as a responsible journalist, at least he has been in his days, and he's passionate too about what he does. And so I would want to assume that he has his own grounds on which he's making this information public and allowing whatever is being said about Darren to be said. And I'm saying that if these allegations were to be proven, there has to be a process by which the family or the aggrieved person, those who feel aggrieved, could turn to some agency to lodge their complaint and have the appropriate investigations done, and then one can pronounce on the culpability of Darren. In the meantime, there are allegations, and I wish, as I might say to all God, that Darren will come out and really clarify the situation, and I hope so in a satisfactory manner. To lose a child is grievous. To lose a child under which the young lost Adriana is extremely grievous. And then to feel cheated, to feel used, to feel abused by people who you expect to be well-intentioned, or people offer themselves up as being well-intentioned, is, I'm sure, would have a psychological impact on you that in many instances, many people don't get over. And mankind is of such a beastly nature, I see. Selfish, covetous, red-eye, all kinds of adjectives, I can use to describe the way human beings behave when it comes to materialistic things. And this is not necessarily in reference to the allegations we've made against Darren, but in the wider sphere of things, because we're seeing, not only is this family saying Darren did X, Y, Z to us, and we are agreed about it, but they're also saying that there are lots of people on social media who have gone out there and used their names to garner funds, and not necessarily for them, but basically to garner funds for themselves. Even by what we call it, imposter representation, right? Misrepresentation, um, pretending to be who they are not, and stuff like that. And if one can, choose such a dreadful occasion to behave in such a manner, then you have to ask yourself, where is the heart, where is the love, where is humanity? Where is the heart, where is love, where is humanity? Why is mankind so brutish to one another? Why? Why do we have to be like that? The other day I was talking, and listen, the other day while I was talking about the importance of being able to fund engineers and so on, right? Somebody suggested that a GoFundMe be open for that purpose. And I said to them, great idea, great idea. I will, convey that advice to the political bigwigs and let them act on it. I went on to say, people may not know, but I find it difficult to, well, not difficult, but I really try to safeguard myself from having to deal too much with other people's money. Because the allegations that can be made against you sometimes, even unfounded. Those things are easy to come by, but they're very, very, very difficult to get rid of. Maybe like Corinthian and white t-shirt or white western shirt. Right? So, as public officials, as community activists and so on, one has to be very, very careful about how they handle publicly garnered finances, if they choose to handle it. And if they choose to handle it, they have to really ensure that they can do strict accountability. Every dime, even if it follows your pocket and it's rolling its way, you must be able to give account for it. Because remember too, that these are people who are aspiring for public office. And if you are aspiring for public office, those are things you don't want to have. Those are labels you don't want to have. Because if you're not in power yet and you're able to imagine when you get access to all the way and right? Those are the sentiments, or those are the usual sentiments of citizens. But we have to be very careful, and we have to be aware. We have to, safeguard our integrity at all times. Again, if our democracy functions, then there must be some agency that the youngsters turn to lodge a complaint and have it investigated in a timely manner and be given satisfactory answer. And until we have that happening in this country again, professionals, whether private or public office, will continue to misbehave or continue to be callous about the way they behave with their clients. Don't let us go out beating up on each other. Don't let us go beating up on each other. Let us, I would say, get the facts, examine the facts, verify the facts, and give everybody involved the right to respond, and let them, be able to respond. And respond with clarity. Those are my desires this morning. But I also desire that we can get better traffic management. What I know is, the road is very, very congested this morning. Very, very congested. Three-way traffic on a two-way road according to them. And it's funny that on a regular day the police might charge you for driving three-lane on a two-lane road, but in the mornings and afternoons, especially weekdays, the police encourage you to drive that way. 3 lanes on a two-lane road. But so it's 8:23. I'm heading to that place where I'm supposed to be. I know y'all know it's there. Y'all know how to know it. Today is court. I have court this morning. The prosecution is supposed to respond to like the uses representation that they have not made out a case against me, and so there is no need for me to lead a defense. And so they're supposed to respond to that this morning, and I'll keep you posted as usual. Where the case is going from there. I quite honestly hope that, well, I hope that it is the last year, but I think the magistrate would definitely need maybe another hearing to come up and give a ruling and so on. I think that is always always what I wish, or what you wish, but more so what is practical. Good. You all can have a good day because I'm gone. I'm I'm gone. We shall talk. If time permits over the weekend, we can have a conversation of some of the things that you want to report on. Maybe we can have a special program. Well, what are some of the things you believe? You can drop those comments there and leave them. I will go back to look for them and so on. You can even WhatsApp me your thoughts on what are some of the things you think need to be changed in our constitution. Because the constitution, as a matter of fact, I think it was this judge who was just retired from the CCJ who said that Guyana has an advanced constitution when it comes to compared to other territories in the Caribbean. And I'm asking myself, if that is true, how is it we have so much fear? How is it we have so much fear? Is it that law in the books and law in the books, but if you don't have any enforcement and so on, then they are just law in the books. What do you think can be done to fix this broken system that is Guyana, especially separation of powers, the way the judiciary functions, the way the legislative organs function, the way the administrative functions? What are some of those? What are some of the things you think can be done? What are some of the changes you would like to see the next government put on this foot? Right, the next government. And while I say I'm going, I remember talking with a young person after the other day, which TikTok. Yeah, I was on one of those TikTok panels, and I heard the youth, young lady, berate the coalition government for allocating plot of land to her that she had to pay $2 million. Said she had applied for land and she was waiting for several years, and then eventually, while the coalition was in office, she was called for an allocation, and she was allocated a plot of land that she had to pay $2 million. In her mind, that was not in keeping with her affordability. It wasn't in keeping with what she can afford, and she saw it as the coalition wanting her to pay it. Right? So she was given a plot of land which she couldn't afford to pay for, barely paid for, and that therefore suggested that they wanted her to pay it. Unfortunate, because from my experience dealing with the Ministry of Housing or Department of Housing, whichever they call it, you are interviewed. When you apply, and they call you for an interview, you're asked to submit papers presenting, indicating your income and so on and so forth. And so, based on the information you provide, you are deemed to be low income, middle income, high income, or no income. Sometimes if you apply for a young professional allocation, turnkey houses, all of those things You get interviewed and you have to provide proof of income and stuff like that as far as I remember. And so I do not understand, I can't understand how it is this young lady was allocated a sort of land value $2 million. And according to her, she couldn't afford that. Who screwed up? But the officers giving her accurate information, because I don't think they will just pull information out of her hat and say, you look like you could pay $2 million. Pay $2 million. When I went for an allocation, first thing I tell them, I ain't walking away, because that was the fact and still is the fact. Government never provided employment for me. CCC ensured I was dismissed once they take office. They gave me a month's pay in lieu of notice. A month's pay couldn't even mind me for months. So when they called me, obviously, you're not fair, but I walking away. I'm self-employed. How much money are you making? And I responded accordingly. I think it was brutal. For the short time that it gave you to pay the money for the land, I think that was brutal. Because they had to find maybe about 1/3, I think, immediately. And then I had a couple of months to find the rest. Right? But the assessment of the value of the land that I could have acquired, I think I would say was a fair assessment. Because I was put right where I stood in the low income bracket. I am not middle income, I'm not young professional, I'm not high income. I'm just like the ordinary Guyanese, doing what you got to do, right? Providing for yourself and family and so on. So I still find it difficult to understand how it is that young lady was allocating a plot of land that was real estate for. And for that, she said she's very angry with the coalition, and as far as she's concerned, she can't get no vote from her, right? She's willing to give her vote to somebody else. And when you hear things like that, you see, well, you know, we plenty bad in this country. Damn you do, damn you don't. Right? Damn you do, damn you don't. Right? You try to maintain law and order, and then chastise the faith, you can't get a vote because money is making. Allow the lawlessness to become pervasive, and chastise you can't get a vote. So, what we get as government in this case, of course, has a direct correlation to what we demand of citizens. We have a part to play, and we have to recognize that. According to them, people get the government they deserve. What do we deserve? So I mentioned the 9 o'clock hour, we tune to the Guyanese morning time on the road. It's Friday the 13th of June. And it's a significant date. The 13th of June is a significant date, especially for us in the Working People's Alliance. Yeah, it was Rodney's death anniversary. Remember, he was murdered 13th of June 1980. Right? And I woke up this morning thinking about it and said, but you know, life is funny. Life is funny. Because imagine, allegedly, Fox Burnham killed Rodney in 1980. And 5 years later, there goes Fox Burnham too. So, you know, 5 years later, a reminder that a man is just a man, regardless of which office he's sitting. We all will end up in the great beyond at some point in time. And so we should keep that in mind and be just to our fellow man. And don't take what we ain't give. Ain't get life, don't take life, try to preserve life instead. And avoid the temptation of unaliving people because they think that they mash your car and they mash your car too hard. this thing we call political contestation. If you're skinning thick, according to the judge, if you don't get too stomach, it's not for you. Then sure you get too stomach or you get thick skin, like badding, right? What people know about badding? Ding, ding, ding. You can study badding, but don't put in the ring, right? um, Let us reflect and try to keep more out of our politics. A lot of people, they say well-intentioned citizens of larger life in this society, um, fighting for good government and democratic practices. And people believe that they have no right to challenge them, and challenge their leadership and challenge their office. In many instances, have allegedly overstepped the boundary and ensure that they meet their demise and are now going beyond. Just remember, you want to join them to something. And on that glorious day, all of you will have to answer for your sin. There's no sin greater than any as far as I is concerned, and sin is a sin. And a big sin or small. So yeah, I'll live up. Live it up. Just say a fellow man, go on to honor what you will have them do unto you. And that should be a good guide in terms of your behavior. I say gone, but I'm going now for you. Now have a good day. Great day to you all. Be safe. Much love. And remember to support the campaign. Remember to support Camp TV. Remember to share and like and subscribe. And there's a Zelle and there's MMT and there's Cash App and so on and so forth. Don't be selfish now. Goodbye. I shall tell you what happens in the court when I get out of the court. I love you all. Give him tough love is love. Later, folks. Goodbye. And you have to report me to the authorities. When I get to a stop, I will disconnect this live. Okay, people? Good. They never want to be strive. Instead of paying with starvation wages, the taxes are living the hell out of us.